via Zoom. In the studios, I have Lerato Musa Saka, who speaks for the NPP. Good morning. How are you doing?
Bella. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much. And also joining us is Gabriela Tete. She's a member of the NDC communications team. Good morning.
Good morning.
How's everything?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine.
You're looking exquisite this morning.
Thank you very much. So
I
are
like
you
your
all.
makeup.
And also joining us via Zoom this morning is Iposu Elijah Oluwakayode. He is a media practitioner. Good morning.
Or maybe just try and call us back to your account. I apologize.
Iposu, can you hear us?
I understand that.
Okay, good morning. I hope you're well.
I'm doing great.
Good to have you. I'm good. Thank you very much. And good to have you join us. And I believe Ayodele Adio, the managing editor for the Avalon Daily in Nigeria, also joins us. Good morning. Can you hear us?
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. And so we'll start off our conversation. I'd mentioned earlier that we'll be crossing over to Nigeria to get a sense of what's happening on the ground at the moment, especially because yesterday the APC nominated its flag bearer that will be going into the 2023 presidential elections. And so yesterday, the man himself was the one that was nominated to represent the APC. I'm talking about Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He was able to get about 60% of the votes. And so he will be going up against PDP's Alhaji Atiku. And questions are that really, will these two people be able to go head on, and who will decide? I mean, of course, who will be decided on in terms of becoming president of Nigeria, knowing very well that security is at the forefront of the conversation, and not just security, but the economy as well, on the back of COVID, on the back of the Ukrainian-Russian war. And so that's what we'll be discussing. But let's go back into time, of course, and talk about President Buhari, who will be ending his second term by 2023 when the elections actually happen. What is the general situation on the ground with regards to President Buhari and his reign as president over time? I can start off with you, Posu.
Well, talking about President Buhari, it's more of a mixed feeling. Generally, there's this perception that his 7 years going on 8 has been a bit of disappointment to many people, because one of the major things he promised to tackle was the economy, well, the insecurity, which hasn't done too well, as I believe a lot of people know already. Of course, like I said, over time, that when they came into power, it was the issue of Boko Haram, which has been partly tackled or largely tackled. The military have been reinforced with more ammunition. However, even in spite of all this, it's still a bit, there are new security threats that have confronted people, sporadic attacks here and there. There are tribal issues, there are communal clashes, and of course, the infamous accusation of Fulani headsmen. So there's all this. There's also the economy, which, like a lot of African presidents who say, it's not really about the Africans. It's all about the influence from all the events happening in other parts of the world as well. So generally, his last 7 years hasn't been entirely what people want. That is not to say he hasn't done a couple of things in different areas. He's introduced palliatives and other, structures that are there to stand the issue of economy, address different issues, sign a couple of bills that have been interesting. But generally, that's the feeling about him in Nigeria.
Ayodele, so how critical was yesterday's election to nominate a flag bearer for the APC? I mean, there have been concerns about the fact that President Buhari has been more absent than present in terms of ruling the country, because we know that his health was also a major problem. He's been away for about 200 or more days, if you add up all the number of days that he had to travel to the UK for medical checkup and all of that. So a lot of people were concerned that if we're voting for the next president, and of course we knew that Tinubu, yesterday won for the APC, then we need to find someone who'll be present, who'll be able to tackle the issues head on. How important or critical was yesterday's election, knowing that Tinubu was going up against the current vice president, who at a point had to rule the country in the absence of the president himself? Ayodele, can you
Yeah,
hear
I
me?
think that
Okay.
I think the most important thing for the elections yesterday was the fact that the party emerged from that particular convention as one huge political party. Because there's been predictions that the party was going to be fractured after the primary elections because there were rumors that the president was going to impose his own preferred successor. And there was going to be a pushback from the Tinubu's camp, the man who eventually emerged as the candidate. So there had been naysayers and predictions that after the primaries, the APC was going to essentially collapse. And it's important that they emerged from that particular election as one party, or rather as one house, to challenge the PDP to retain power in 2023. So I think that if you put everything together, that would have been the most important thing in the minds of most people. And if the party had attempted, to impose a candidate during that election and had not allowed for a free, fair, and transparent process, and I think that the doomsday prophecy would have actually come to fruition, because you could see from the elections yesterday that Tinubu had an overwhelming support of a majority of the delegates in the party, and had a lot of widespread support across the country. So to have attempted to swindle or tamper with the process of that election yesterday would simply have spelled doom for the party in power as we speak. So they have crossed the first hurdle, which is to go out of the primary election as one political party. Now it's time to heal the wounds within the party and to forge a common front towards the 2023 elections.
But that's the concern, because again, if you look at it, a number of people are saying that Tinubu made it look like, well, it is his right to become the next flag bearer, because he said that it was thanks to the work that he did, of course, coming together, merging his party with that of President Buhari, that made Buhari the president now. And so there was an understanding and an agreement that if Buhari then becomes president, the next person to lead the party would be Tinubu. So then it looked like, whether you like it or not, I have to go. We have an agreement. What was the feeling like among the party members and, of course, the delegates who had to vote concerning this?
Listen, many of those delegates, or many of because delegates are elected by leaders of the party. So I'll say that many of the delegates and the leaders of the party cannot pretend not to know the level of support that they got from Ashiwaju in the last 7 years, particularly 2014 leading up to the 2015 elections. It was a Herculean task to have defeated the then incumbent, the People's Democratic Party, that had been in power for 16 years. Many would never have thought it would have happened in an African country, but it happened, and it was largely amidst other factors due to the support, the resources, the political wit of Ashwaju to have pulled that off. And it didn't just end there. He continued to invest in the party, to support several other people within the party, to emerge in various offices across the country. In fact, the Senate president, as we speak today, was hugely supported by Ashwaju, whether the Speaker of the House of Assembly, several other governors. I mean, his support is widespread. So in essence, what he was saying actually, and the utterances that you heard in the last 1 week came out from the pushback that a free and fair process was not going to transpire. And what he was saying is that I have done enough in this party to be allowed a level playing field to compete and test my popularity. And that led to the series of outbursts that many claim are driven at personal aggrandizement. But it came out from a place of, if I had done this much for a political party, at least I should be given a level playing field to compete and test my popularity, polls, which was what happened, over the weekend. And so, yes, to the extent that it would have been completely uncalled for to have excluded somebody who formed a major building block of that political party for selfish reasons, or for the reasons that you wanted to impose a consensus candidate. It wouldn't have made any sense. It would have piggy-banked on the party, and it would have cost a lot of fractions in that political party.
So, Ikwasu, let's look at the ages of the two flag bearers for the major political parties in the country. For Tinubu, he's 70 years. And there are concerns that he's too old. You know, he already had to undergo a knee surgery. And so just like President Buhari, who was again absent for a total of about 200 and more days, there are concerns that we would see same with Tinubu. He has fired back saying that he's as fit as a fiddle and the presidency is not about digging a grave. You know, it's more about the ideas that you have to implement so that it would favor the citizens. But is he healthy enough to go against PDP's Atiku? PDP is saying he's no match at all for them.
Well, if you look at the life of the life cycle of every individual, you would understand that the older you get, the weaker you become. And obviously, you might have heard of certain medical issues that Asiwaju has had, but one would expect that anybody above the age of 70 cannot be as strong as somebody in his 40s or 50s. So I believe that should be established. Now, having said that, comparatively, yes, there's that concern that if he's looking at his health, if the health gets the better of him, he might not be able to perform from 2023, should he get into power. But the challenge there, the advantage, the little advantage he has is that some have also said that comparing him with the current president, Muhammadu Buhari, might not be very accurate because he has been, unlike the president, he has been more active intellectually and physically even before his attempt to get into government. You've seen him move around Nigeria at certain times. You've seen him address issues, and that is what it means to lead Nigeria. The interesting thing, the difference between both candidates, that's Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu and the Vice President Atiku Abubakar, is that both of them have never for one day left the scene. They've been active, they've been involved in governance, they've been involved in business. They have a lot of proteges that, rely on them and that they use, that work with them. Asiwaju, for example, being a governor between 1999 and 2007, you can point to the number of people that he raised and the number of people that worked for him back then. There's this perception that if he comes into power, you see a lot more young people around him. You see a lot more people around him that are ready to work. And I mean, young people getting opportunities to influence. And that again is one possible thing that you will see with Alhaji Abubakar Atiku, that both of them, yes, their age might not, be the best right now. Their health definitely cannot be the best. It can be compared to yours and mine, but for the better, and hope that they're strategic in how they lead the nation. For some of them, you can see that there's obvious change, which is a cause for major concern amongst Nigerians, that there's obvious change between their agility over the past 5 years. And knowing the demands of the office of the president in Nigeria, that will this thing further deteriorate? Now, if it deteriorates, some questions that come up are these. One, their team, do they have the same vision as the president? Any of them coming into the office? Can they carry on with the vision, or will they fail? And one of the reasons this is coming up is because a lot of people believe that the reason President Muhammadu Buhari has not done exceptionally well is that compare his statements and his actions when he came into the office in 2015 to 2016, there's a huge difference. And that the people around him are not as nationalistic in views as he is. So that has been a bit of a worry for working towards 2023 and considering the two candidates who are well in their 70s. But I guess we can only wait and see what happens back then. There's an option of Peter Obi who is younger, but we don't know how far he will go, or any other person like the Mohalus, Kingsley Mohalu, who is the former deputy governor of the central bank, how far any of it.
So, Ayodele, I'll wrap up this conversation with you. And I just want to find out, because when you look at security, based on some studies that have been conducted, we're told that security became even worse, under the current president. And so there's a need for that to be really handled moving forward if the next person is elected. So who do you think, based on comments from Nigerian citizens, who are they leaning more towards? Would it be the PDP's Atiku, or would it be the APC's Tinubu?
I mean, it's too early to tell where the masses are leaning towards. And because both candidates are flawed in several ways, it's left a lot of particularly young voters in a limbo. And that's why there's a talk of a potential third force in the Peter Obis of this world.
Okay.
I think, again, that the Nigerian people have realized that improving national security will not strictly depend on who you elect, but the ability to rejig the institutions, that provide security for citizens. And I'm talking about the police, the military, the civil defense, the DSS. There has to be a new security architecture. There has to be new investments in our security apparatus. Many of the communities that are terrorized or attacked by bandits have very little or no police presence at all. So all of these things need to happen if we're going to improve security that has been, I would argue, vulgarized over the last couple of years. So except there's investment in those institutions, except there's some level of constitutional amendment that allows for states to also play a more important role in providing security for their people at the state and local government level, there's likely that our security situation will continue to deteriorate over the next few years. So Nigerians Nigerians are at the point where they've had so many breakups. They are suspicious of who their next spouse is going to be, and they are watching very carefully to see if there's a possibility for a third force to be elected. And that's why you see a lot of young people excited about Peter Obi. But let's see what the next few months play out in the political.
They don't hold it against him that at a point he was running, for the PDP presidential candidate and decided to decamp to the Labour Party. Nobody's holding that against Peter Obi?
No, I mean, absolutely not. The majority of the young people who support him just think he's a breath of fresh air.
Okay.
And somebody outside the typical political establishment.
All right. Thank you so much for speaking to me, gentlemen. Ikposu Elijah Oluwakayode is a media practitioner, and Ayodele Adio is the managing editor for the Avalon Daily. We had to cross over to Nigeria to find out exactly what was happening, based on the fact that yesterday the APC also nominated its presidential candidate in the name of Honorable Alhaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who will be going against PDP's Alhaji Atiku. Now, let's bring it back to Ghana. Of course, I have Gabriela and Larato here with me. When we go back to the 2015 elections in Nigeria, I remember when President Buhari won, that would be the first time in Nigeria's history that a sitting president had been voted out of office, and so he could not continue with his second term. I'm talking about former President Goodluck Jonathan. Now, a lot of people said that there was this wind of change that was blowing, and, we were going to see something similar happen in Ghana. Fast forward 2016, we saw something similar happen where former President John Dramani Mahama also was voted out of office. Now, a lot of people are saying that based on history, it's likely that we're going to see something similar, or at least we'll see, based on the elections in Nigeria, it will go a long way to determine what happens in Ghana. Do you believe so, Gabriela?
I think there are a lot of similarities, but you see, the Ghanaian voter votes based on peculiar issues that are occurring in Ghana. So you can't use that to project the mindset of a Ghanaian voter. We're facing our own set of unique challenges. I think that the elections in Nigeria 2023 is going to be very interesting because there are three main issues on the table. One is the economy, as you mentioned. There is security, which is a big problem. And then there is anti-corruption. Now, both gentlemen who are contesting for APC and PDP are about 70 years old. Both of them are actual professional politicians. The APC candidate, who is 70 years, has a lot of corruption allegations around his neck like a necklace. There's a court case from, I think, about 3-4 years ago that he's supposed to be taking his consultancy firm, Alpha Beta, was in court for corruption, and they were supposed to be taking 10% of Lagos state revenues. He denied that he owned the company, but previous years he did accept that he owned the company. But according to reports, the court was mysteriously burnt down during the NSAS campaign. So the case of anti-corruption between the APC is still shrouded in whether they can actually fight corruption. Again, on the issue of insecurity, currently there's hardly a day that you do not hear reports, sadly, about insurgencies and terrorist cells. The recent one was a Catholic church, which was a very unfortunate incident, and my heart goes out to all the victims and those whose kins were lost. It's a big problem within the sub-region, and especially in Nigeria and the northern part of the sub-region. And it's not on our table, but we'll just stay with Nigeria. And I find it interesting that a government, which is headed by a former military general like Buhari, has no control over insurgents and terrorists. Then what can the poor Akufo-Addo do, who's a civilian? Then the anti-corruption. Don't giggle. It's a serious issue.
No. I mean, the fact that Buhari, of course, he also has his excesses when it comes to his military role. And so if we're going to compare and say that of course, he promised that he was going to fight this and could not fight it.
But you see, was he not president? Was he not president when a whole train was attacked and people killed? That's why I'm saying that hardly a day goes by that you don't hear about this kind of incidents happening in Nigeria. And for somebody who has a military background like him, one would have thought that at the level of a general, surely strategy at that level must be peak, which is actually as a result of the age. Both candidates, APC is 70 years old, PDP is 75, and there are young people in Nigeria who can contest for the presidency of Nigeria.
There are.
Why should our subcontinent be enduring old men who have lived out their visions and then still have to come and govern us, and then we see the results? Because there's no creativity, there's no foresight. I mean, everything has gone down.
Is that what we're experiencing here in Ghana as well?
Is it not obvious?
It is? From both parties then? Please,
our candidate is not 70 years old.
Well, he may not be 70, but then there have been concerns that it's time for us to get much younger people to rule the country.
There's a possibility of that. Why not? And actually, I'm really in favor of that proposition, because I think that, forgive my, I probably may say a lot more than I should be saying, but you see, young people generally, looking at the contemporary times that we're in, our appreciation of issues is different. Where Generation X, millennial, late boomers, that generation has a very creative atmosphere around them. You have a government led by a 70-something-year-old and a close to 60-year-old deputy who day in, day out, people are complaining about excruciating hardship, and they can't even conceive a proper strategy how to help augment the people of Ghana from the challenges that are confronting this country. But let's not bring it to Ghana yet, because we'll talk about inflation later. We're talking about Nigeria, so let's focus on Nigeria.
Well, we're comparing it to Ghana, which was the question I asked you earlier. And if you're talking about age, if we look at former President Mahama, he's 63 years at
he's
the
still
moment.
Young.
He's still young?
Which is still less than 75.
No, you talked about a vice president who is, 60 or close to 60,
the one who's leading the vice. The one who's leading the vice is 75.
I get you, but if you're still talking about the age of 60 and more, then that is also problematic.
Well, no, it's not problematic, because we're talking about a president who's around 60, and we're talking about a president who's 75. The creative juices have run out, and it's dull. That is why they have no vision. It's like, in the words of Madame Esler, her political godmother, visionless, clueless, nepotistic. I mean, we can repeat the same thing we've been repeating for years. Bella, in Nigeria, there are real issues. And I'm going into this election. I expect that the way the media in Ghana drills the Ghanaian politicians, I wish that the Nigerian media, the two gentlemen, I'm sure they'll still be on air, online, that they will also adopt the same strategy to ensure that the people who are going to lead Nigerians have a proper vision and have a proper plan for the youth of Nigeria. These insurgency issues, these armed robbery issues, all this corruption, even to the point what even started the SARS campaign was because there was so much corruption in the police force. All these things will at least be reduced if you have somebody who is credible enough and has that integrity to occupy the presidency. And I expect that the Nigerian media should be leading that together with civil society to help the Nigerian electorate take the right decision. If this gentleman with 10% of Lagos state revenue per month, in its back pocket versus Atiku are not good for Nigeria, they have a third option. They should consider the third option so that the future of Nigeria is guaranteed and for the safety of the entire sub-region. Because one thing that has always been of concern to us when it comes to Nigeria is that because we are the closest Anglophone country next to them, they see us as their siblings, and then whenever there's an issue, migration is likely to tend towards us. And there's a limit how much we can contain, looking at the numbers, the Nigerian numbers. So I always advocate for a scenario where there's always peace and stability in Nigeria and that they thrive. They're the biggest country in West Africa. The economy of ECOWAS is heavily dependent on Nigeria. So Nigeria must succeed.
Okay. Let me bring in Lerato, because if you look at the history of Nigeria as well, you realize, like I mentioned earlier, 2015 up until now, President Buhari has been ruling. Same way from 2016, we also got a new president, President Akufo-Addo, who has been ruling, and his tenure comes to an end in 2024. Everyone has said, and of course, even the MPP, with the concern about breaking the eight, there's been a need to critically choose who will be the next flag bearer for the NPP moving forward. If that person should go against former President John Dramani Mahama, who we all know has made it clear that he will be the one running. We're still waiting for the primaries, of course, but clearly it's obvious who might run for the NDC. Now, if you look at the trajectory of events and all of that, do you think that just like what's happened in Nigeria, where they have elected someone to represent the APC, and he says that it is my right because I helped the former president become who he is that what we're seeing happening within the NPP as well, where someone might say that whether or not I have the capabilities, I feel like it's my turn and I have to run? And how are you managing that as a party?
Gabriela went on the age tangent, and I think between the two of us, we know that's a very slippery path to take, because one of the questions, there's another school of thought that thinks that have the youth shown promise?
Have they?
That's
not?
another conversation we can have on another day. But you can have someone 80, 90, relatively younger than someone 40, 50, depending on their lifestyles and other things. So the age conversation is a bit tricky, and I don't think we should.
But over time, there have been concerns about voting for someone much, much younger, even below the age of 60, because they also are vested with all those ideas that can transform the economy and transform the country. It's high time we start looking at that, don't you think so?
Yes, but what I'm saying is, it's there are different angles to the conversation. Lifestyle determines age. Which age are you talking about? Are you just talking about the chronological age or the biological age or whatever? If we use age as a measure, we might get it wrong. I mean, competence, what a person is capable of doing, how the person manages a situation and all that come to play. I won't go on the age tangent. Because being a leader is not necessarily jumping around or going through activities. It takes a lot of thinking and sober reflection.
Have we
but
seen
that's,
that
but
with
that's,
President Akufo-Addo? He's currently, what, 78 years old. There are concerns that he may have been too old, which is why a lot of things are not running smoothly like
well,
we were
that's an
promised.
opinion, but at least he is older than that person he took over from, and has been able to take the economy to
When you say older than
the
the person
level
he took over from, you mean former President
former
Akufo?
president.
Okay.
No, he didn't take. President Akufo didn't take
He
over.
took over from former President Dramani Mahama. And you say what?
Exactly. He's
what?
older than him.
He's older, okay.
Yes, took an
Okay.
economy from him and moved it into better. So let's be careful about the age conversation.
Has
But,
he really?
Yes, he has.
Inflation.
And don't let us pretend. We are in difficult times now. We are in difficult times now. Nobody denies it.
Inflation
and
is at
work
its
is being
all-time
done.
high.
Yes.
Okay.
And that nobody denies that. But what I want to put across, let's be careful how we go on the age conversation. We've seen youth being given opportunities, and we've seen youth being given opportunities, and they've done marvelously well. We've seen elderly people being given opportunities, and they've disappointed. We've seen elderly people. So the age conversation, I think, you can be a president in this country from age 40. You can be a parliamentarian from age 21. I don't think the framers of our constitution didn't think through all these things. Once you're 40, and I don't think anybody has prevented any 40-year-old or above to present. And with the bit about Nigeria, Nigeria always goes into elections a year before us. This one is in 2023, I think.
Yes.
25th February or so, and they've gone through their primaries. We are even yet to elect national officers. We've gone through the polling station, gone through constituency. We did regionals last month. We are going for national next month, and after national, we'll go through the who becomes our next flag bearer. So these are issues. It's a process, and we'll get there. But when you look at the numbers in Nigeria, in 2015, President Buhari won by, I think, a little over 53%, as against President Goodluck Jonathan's 44%. In 2019, President Buhari won by 55%, a little over 55%, as against the PDP's Atiku, who got 41%, a little over 41%, if I'm getting my figures right. That's about 14% difference. That's about, when you do the maths, about 4 million votes. Has the PDP been able to, looking at the issues with President Goodluck being taken to court ruling in his favor, know that all these issues come to play. Unity in a political party used to play. Power brokers have their own role to play. The voters have their own issues to play. The interesting thing about Nigeria is they vote more on ethnicity and religion, unlike us. We're a bit liberal when it comes to those aspects, but they take quite entrenched positions. And now you have 2 Muslims going. They haven't even settled on who they are running with. So all those dynamics come to play. And you learn from who is ahead of you. I don't think what is happening in the MPP, our party now, is anything outrageous and all that. We are a democratic party. We go for elections. We've been through polling station, we've been through constituency, we've been through region. We're going for national. We'll definitely go for flag bearer, and whoever becomes the flag bearer, we'll all go support the person and make sure that we maintain power and break the 8, because we have a better record as compared to the record of the MDC.
I see. Well, I mean, talking about that earlier, we talked about inflation. We might as well bring it in, because as it stands now, the inflation rates for May is out. And according to the Ghana Statistical Service, we are at 27.6% as of May, from the 23.6% that we recorded back in April. And if you look at the driving factors, transport is at the top with 39.0%, household equipment at 33.8%. Then we have housing, water, and electricity, and that is at 32.3%. Let's get into all the other percentages. So that food and non-alcoholic beverages 30.1%, and personal care is at 27.3%. This is an all-time high, 18-year all-time high. If you look at the statistics from back in May 2021, you realize that there's been a tremendous jump. Now, in May 2021, our inflation rate was 7.5%. A year later, we are recording 27.6%. And the question is, what are we not doing right? Lerato. Well, we'll come to this conversation shortly. Let's take a quick break. And when we get back, we'll get into the issue of inflation. And of course, we'll go into the issue of the cathedral and how much money, taxpayers' money, has been spent so far. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is still the big issue on TV3Newday. In the studios, I have Gabriela Tete. She is a member of the NDC communications team, and Lerato Musa Saka is a member of the NPP communications team. Earlier, I was giving you figures of the new inflation rates as at May, which is now at 27.6%. It's risen from the 23.6% that we recorded back in April. Now, if you look at year on year, back in May 2021, the inflation rate was 7.5%. Now, it has moved by 20.1% to 27.6% in just a year. Just 1 year, an 18-year all-time high. And the question that many people are asking is, what are we still not doing right? Lerato.
Bella, rise in inflation is not something that any government finds it interesting to talk about. It's a difficult situation, especially when it affects food. That's the basics that everyone is supposed to afford. For the last 12 months, the rates have been going up. And for us in particular, it's a bit challenging for us because our target was 8%. That's plus 1 or plus 2 or minus 2. So either 10% or either 6%, 8% or 10%. There have been interventions to curb the situation and make life bearable for the ordinary citizen. And that has been the focus of this government. Until we're hit by COVID. And whenever we mention COVID, our compatriots go like COVID. But COVID, we can't underestimate the havoc it has wreaked across the globe. Until we hit COVID, we're hovering around single digits and a little over 10% and all that. So in the last 12 months that it's been going up, one of the major factors initially was the exchange rate. That's the dollar because of importation and all other things. But it's been pretty stable for the past few weeks. In March, the finance minister came out with interventions that was to help us deal with the situation and the economy itself. There were about 14 interventions that included pay cuts for the president and his appointees, 50% cut on fuel allocations, including the Bank of Ghana also coming out with a special exchange rate for bulk oil, those distributors, those who import our oil thing. One of the major factors too that affects food prices, consumer price index calculation and all that, because with the consumer price index, which determines inflation, they go out across the 16 regions, and there's always a basket of items that they look at across the 16 regions. If I get my numbers right, it's over 39,000 items that they go to various shops across the 16 regions, mainly urban, to get to be able to arrive at the average. So even with the situation, you and I, our individual inflation rates could be higher than what the average is. It's come up. Interventions have come. They are still not working. And with every process, once you start it, you monitor, you control it, you evaluate it, and you improve upon it. The interventions that BOG has come, they've reduced the policy rates and all that, try to inject capital into it to reduce the scarcity of foreign exchange and all that. We still haven't the situation. We have mid-year review budget coming up. I believe there's cabinet today. I think in the coming days, I believe from these meetings, cabinet meetings and other interactions at the top government level with various stakeholders and looking at the preparation of mid-year review, I believe the government that took this economy from a growth rate of 3.4 to an average of almost 7% will come up with interventions to assuage the situation. It's a difficult time.
Point?
You see,
at what
we
point
talk about COVID. We talk about COVID. It's
nobody's given to government. I remember, sorry
yes.
to cut you, but even Dr. Sarkodie, who is an economist, he said that even to tackle food inflation, we must address food production issues. Yes. And he said this back in April when the inflation rates moved to 23.6%. And he said that, well, maybe we're looking at things differently. If we tackle the major issues, we won't be where we are today. Have you listened as a government? How
do you attack food inflation issues? How do you control your economy? One of the major ways is industrialization, entrepreneurship. When government came out with all Batampa projects to revitalize the economy, look at industrialization, look at digitalization, look at empowering the youth and creating jobs. You start. It's up.
Has it started?
You started. The process has started of getting. There was a budget allocation made for them.
But has it started yet? Have young people been given some seed money? Because we're told that some amount of money will be given to young people to start businesses. Has that started yet?
You Start has been launched. It takes a process to get the money to the person. People have to apply. You just don't handpick people and give them money.
How many have
apart
applied?
From youth, I can get you the figures.
Okay.
I didn't know.
When does it actually start?
When
you say that people have to apply, when do we get to the point where people actually receive the money? Or are we waiting
starts in July.
In July?
Yes.
So, of course, we're relying on e-levy and the monies that we're going to accrue from that as well?
Apart from e-levy, government also generates other resources. But e-levy, You Start is a component of e-levy. We started collecting e-levy. If we hadn't gone through all the back and forth, sure would have started. But You Start starts in July.
Okay.
Yes. And the institution in charge of that, NEP, has been up. They've been talking to all the stakeholders involved. They've been talking to all the youth agencies that can come on board. They're in continuous talk with the Ministry of Finance. And Kofi Ofosu, who is known as the youth president, definitely can disappoint his youth. He's really working hard with his deputy, who happens to be one of my sisters. So they are really working hard. And in July, You Start to take off. But the process has started. Okay. Sultans and all that, they have all the documentation, the monitoring frameworks and all that. So in July, You Start to start. Apart from that, we already had Maslow. That has also been allocated some form of capital. And Maslow is still giving loans to SMEs. You tackle your economy by controlling your economy. Why did we insist on e-levy? Because there was a lot of conversation about borrowing and increasing our debt and all that. So we needed a domestic, local, homegrown solution. That's what brought about e-levy. So we can take our money and control it and put the money where we want the money to be without going for loans that comes with conditionalities and other things. So e-levy has come. It suffered its own hiccups. We are going, it's coming up saying, any change comes with a certain level of resistance. But with time, when we measure the convenience that doing digital transactions come in, I believe it will pick up and we'll all enjoy. All I always appeal to citizens and let's all, like the president said, let's all be citizens and ensure that what we are putting our money out for, the tax we are paying, is used for what we are used to. Because the president is sitting there, the ministers are there, the MMDCs are there. You and I live in the communities. You and I are the ones who suffer when the economy is not. Well, I was discussing a few issues, Gabriela, before we came in. Okay. She was complaining about buying bread. That was 1 CD for 2 CD, 50 pesos. But it looks like Gabriela buys it from a high-end area because I buy it for 2 CDs. Okay. You know, I mean, 1 CD, 50 pesos. If you have a family that has about 5 children and everybody has to take a roll of bread a day, that's 5 CDs. When the parents' salary hasn't gone up. It's not a convenient situation. It's not a situation that any government will be happy about. But you look at it, and it's global.
It is global.
It is global.
Our neighbors are controlling their inflation rate. If you talk about it being global, let's look at Nigeria. Now, even Nigeria, with the high state of insecurity and, you know, economic challenges, their rate is at 16.82% as we last checked. Now, Ivory Coast, as at May, we're told, has moved to about 5.4%, but it was at 4% last month. Kenya is at 6.47%, Senegal 7%, Uganda 4.9%, and even South Africa is at 3.9%. And so if we're saying that is a global crisis, we all encountered COVID. We all encountered the Ukraine-Russia war as well. How come these countries that are very close to us are managing their inflation rates to this point, and yet we have moved from 7% to what, 27.6% in a year?
It's good. It's good to do comparison with our neighbors and all that, but the situations differ.
How so?
The same way we were commended for managing COVID. I don't think most of our neighbors got that commendation right. And even if you look at, no matter how low their inflation rates are, is it increasing or not? Have you done that comparison? Has their inflation rates been stagnant?
But we're the highest in the sub-region.
No. I mean, being high, nobody denies that. Inflation going up, nobody denies that. Difficult situation, we haven't denied that. But are theirs also going up or stagnating or reducing?
But at least if you look at the percentage. No,
Gala, if we want to do a comparison, let's do
but
proper
if you look
comparison.
at percentage-wise,
is theirs also increasing,
if you look
or
at
is only Ghana that is increasing?
Now, for Nigeria like this, it was at 15.9% in March. It's only moved to 16.82% in April. Okay, so if you look at the percentage of increase and you compare to Ghana, then you realize that we're doing far worse, are we not?
When you are doing comparison of data, that's why you do year on year. The data you are giving me for Nigeria and all our other neighbors, what was the timeline for this data? Is it May? Is it their May inflation rates?
Well, at the moment, what I'm giving you is 16.80% for April. But even that as at March.
No.
But you cannot see Nigeria jump to 27%.
No.
When they moved from 15.9% in March.
When you are doing comparison, you do year on year. You do likes. You don't compare apples to oranges.
Okay.
Theirs is increasing. You haven't denied that. It may be low, but it's still increasing. Ours is increasing. We haven't denied that. We have to put measures in place. Yes. That's why I told you. Media review is coming. The media review budget is coming. Why do we do media review? You put in a budget, you review it to suit your situation as you go on. There have been times that we've put in supplementary budgets and all that because of situations that we find ourselves in. And that's what I've said. Media review is coming. Though some interventions were put in, salary cuts, fuel allocation cuts, giving special. One of the drivers of prices in this country is fuel. Don't also forget that our fuel sector is deregulated. And even if we want to go on the markups or the fuel buildup, it's not in percentages, it's in pesos. It's fixed. That's about a total of 2 cedi 70 pesos. That hasn't changed. It hasn't been increased. But around the time that we're having all these conversations, sometime last year, I can't get the day right, crude oil prices were around $45, $40. Today it's hovering around 70 plus and all that. We'll talk about Russia and Ukraine. Our compatriots will say, don't mention it. But it's a factor. We are price takers. We don't deny that we find ourselves in difficult situations. And I also don't think, sometimes we forget, but the president also preempted us about this when he said he was going to save lives. The economy will go out of gear, and he will make sure he will bring it back on
How
course.
is he bringing it back? That's the question we're
The
asking.
interventions we are putting in place.
Like what?
I've mentioned the 14 that has come. I've told you mid-year review is coming. Oh, come. You review as you go on. Nobody denies that. Because if I have to go and have my salary that was taking me for 1 month, now cannot take me for 3 months, it's something to worry about. And I don't think the president is oblivious of that.
But if
he hasn't denied the fact that we are in difficult thing.
We were told that we were moving from taxation to industrialization. Over time, we would expect that that should have at least cushioned the economy, and we should have been in a better position at this moment. In fact, as it stands now, we're being even taxed more than we were told we'll be taxed.
Does moving from taxation mean no taxation?
Nobody said no taxation. But if you tell us that we're moving from taxation to production and industrialization, then we would expect that we won't have to be paying higher taxes.
Does moving from taxation to industrialization mean that there will be no taxes? You are building the... And 1D, 1F has been one of the things. Why don't we talk about it? Why are we not talking about the over 100 factories that are functioning?
What has been the impact of these factories?
What has been the impact? If it's done nothing at all, it's added down to our economy. Those
in
people
what
pay.
Way?
Really? It's created over 2,000 jobs. I can give you
are people
the
feeling
figures.
The effect? Are Ghanaians feeling the effect? If you say it has created over 2,000 jobs,
at least if for
majority of
nothing
Ghanaians are still complaining that there's no money in their pockets.
If for nothing at all, the young man or young woman who works at a Kumfi juice factory that doesn't need to go to his mother or his father or his uncle for basics. They get a salary. The farmer who is giving a Kumfi the raw material, who is the pineapple, doesn't need to go and stand by the roadside, try to hawk his or her pineapple and get them water. So he's making an impact. Don't let us just talk about the negatives and not look at it. It's a process. 106 and counting factories.
What
if for nothing at all, the poultry industry, and I have a farmer for a father, the poultry industry, if for nothing at all, if anybody knew the role Daco Farms was playing in the poultry industry, for Daco Farms to be revamped is a huge impact.
But if you look at impact as well, are they producing, if you're saying that these factories have been impactful, are they producing what we need here?
Are you
if
buying
you look at the
eggs from
things
Daco
that
Farms?
we import?
Are you buying eggs from Daco Farms? Do you know our poultry farmers buying their old chicks from Daco Farms? It's you and I that have to buy. Are you drinking a Kumfi juice?
Are we not importing more chicken?
Are you buying pastries from Casa de Oro?
Are we not importing more chicken?
Are you wearing the shoes that the shoe factory is producing? The tea roll that those around Akuse are producing, is that what you buy? Sometimes we also need to ask ourselves those questions.
Let me bring Gabriela in. What do you make of this increase in inflation? Of course, we were told that it was even likely to go as high as maybe even 40%. Are you surprised?
I am not surprised. And those who are predicting 40%, I will equally not be surprised. Because currently, as the government statistician mentioned, this inflation is driven largely by transportation and food. And the food inflation is also driven actually by the transportation index. Haulage, public transport are driven largely on diesel in this country. So there's a huge demand for diesel. From we're in June. So from April, when government, when the price of diesel crossed the 10 cedi mark, I knew that definitely it was going to become a problem for not just the transporters, but also on the food component as well. Today, crude is selling at $120 to a barrel thereabouts. Is it going to change? No, because we're in a very delicate time as a globe. But the good thing about it is that we also produce crude. And I think I was on the same platform when we had a conversation, and I proposed that it's time for us to retrofit Tor to process our oil so that we can have some component of domestic production in our mix. I listened to the president of the OMCs complaining that currently there is no profit margin for them in the price build-up. Secondly, some of their members are collapsing because they are unable to lift. It is not prudent for them to be in the business of lifting oil any longer. And this is something that has been going on since April, and it's only been escalating up to June. And it's going to trend way into July. We were here prior to when the Ukraine war started. I said the biggest threat to Africa with this Ukraine war is our overdependence on wheat from Russia and Ukraine. CSIR, from the time I was a little girl watching documentaries on GTV, has been proposing that we should look at cassava flour as a complement, as a kind of component to wheat flour. I'm 43 years old this year. No, 42 years old this year. I'm in a hurry to grow old. I'm 42 years old this year. And from the time I was a little girl, compare that to my age, how many years is that? We have cassava plantations in this country, in hectares, that are used to produce alcohol. Because that's our priority. We are more interested in producing alcohol than looking at the other forms or gains we can get from cassava production. Today, what you were saying about the price of bread, I was flabbergasted when I saw that little piece of bread. January, it was 1 cedis. In March, they increased it to 1 cedi 20. Don't laugh, 1 cedi 25 or something like that, 150 pesos. It didn't even get to 2 cedis. It just jumped straight to 2.5. And I was like, that's like the smallest piece of bread you can find. And I was just saying to myself, whenever I have this kind of opportunities, my first inclination is always, what about the one who doesn't have it like me and is next to me? And I get very upset about these things. Government ought to sit down critically and examine why we are having high interest rate, high inflation, exchange rate depreciation. These three are highly correlated. And the fourth is the debt. If you don't address the issue of the debt and how productive you allocate these debts to, so you can get some multiplier effects in your economy and it will generate money back to the state, you find that all these three other indices are either underperforming, like your currency, or they are rising. So that's why I always have a problem with Akufo-Addo. When I complain, people don't understand.
What do you have? What problem do you have with him?
70-year-old, it's unfortunate. I'm very sorry, but I think that it has run out. I mean, there's no creativity in how to address it.
But he's surrounded by people. There are young people in his government.
Who he's refusing to reshuffle.
There are young people in his government.
Who he's refusing to reshuffle because they are still. The agric minister, who should be having this conversation with Akufo-Addo, is himself lacing his boot to run for president on the field.
Is there anything wrong if he has interest in running for president?
What was that his initiative that he's supposed to be running?
Is there anything wrong
Planting for food and jobs?
If he wants to run for president?
Planting for food and jobs. Our attempt at rice production is struggling. Yam production is struggling. Do you know today, one single finger of plantain is 5 cedis? One.
In which market?
In Adenta market. One.
You checked this morning before coming?
How could I have checked this morning?
Well,
when
you
I
said
got
today.
Here
You said today.
Because I've been there the past week. So I'm telling you the current prices. When I'm saying that today, I mean current prices. The same person who told us that a bunch was 5 cedis. It is a finger. That is now 5 cedis. So this whole administration is nothing but an inept administration. They have no clue how to address the challenges that are confronting us as a country. And come 2024, in fact, from now to 2024, we just have to endure the hardship that this government is placing on us.
There's something
Let me add on something.
Okay.
On fuel. When Labour, on May Day, mentioned that public sector workers and Labour had not had an increment in salary, and the transport cost was biting, what did you tell them? He can't touch the fuel because it means that he's going to lose 4 billion in revenue. He's more interested in how he's going to make money to finance his flying about than how to cushion the ordinary Ghanaian. Look at all the taxes on fuel. And I've mentioned that a chunk of your fuel bill is on diesel, which runs this economy. So if cost of running on diesel is expensive, definitely everything else is going to go up. How much does it cost to fill a truck to load yam from the north to the south? It's twice the amount. Do you expect the transporter to be grinning like me, who has a problem with laughter, and be just absorbing it like that? It's impossible. Transport operators are crying. Speak to taxi drivers. Send your cameras to them. Last 2 months, they were crying. In fact, now they are wailing. Because now it's between either they lie to the car owner or they go and lie to their wives. They just show up every day to work because at least they'll get some water and some kinky in the end. But aside from that, they are gaining nothing.
If you say we should resuscitate toll, can it meet the demand?
It is, even if it does even 30% of local production, it is still something. Now, look at our public transport system. Honorable Osafo Mafo said that if you think that you can't buy the fuel, park your car. I won't mind parking my car if there was an effective public transport system that I could jump on and get here on time to have my conversation. But there isn't. Now that prices have gone up, you should know very well that it's time for you to take a critical look at Ghana's mass public transport system. Metro Mass is collapsing. Look at the state of BRT. But it is the opportunity for us to fix that problem. There was a Deputy Minister for Transport, Minister for Transport, mentioned that to solve this problem, Ghana is going to look at having gas-driven buses. You can't maintain the fuel-driven buses. You want to go and bring gas-driven buses. Why can't we utilize what we have and let it run efficiently and properly so that the Ghanaian who has the vehicle and is now struggling to buy fuel can park their cars, take the public transport, and get to their destination safely and on time?
You talk about the ineptitude of the Akufo-Addo government. Could we say same about former President Dramani Mohammed's government? When you say that as a child,
is not in
when
office.
you say that as a child, CSIR always campaigned that we should look for alternatives to wheat in the country, and so cassava flour should have been that alternative. We didn't do it under your administration, even if you thought that that was a viable option.
Then you blame Rawlings, you blame Kufuor, you blame Atta Mills, and then you come and blame Mahama, and then you add Akufo-Addo to it. So all 5 presidents have failed us.
But when President Kufuor started the cassava initiative, was it not abandoned after his regime?
It was for alcohol and glue.
Was it not abandoned under his regime?
It was not abandoned. There's one in my constituency. It is being converted to, it's owned by Jospon. It is being converted to glue manufacturing. That project that was built by Akufo was unsustainable.
But you could have expanded it when you came into power.
The cassava variety they were using was not the edible cassava. This was industrial cassava for industrial starch. And the farmers who had grown that could not sell on the market because the prices they were offering them at the factory was low. Compared to how much it costs to produce. Eventually, they all decided that we'll not join the outgrowers again. We'll go and plant normal cassava. At least we can make Gary and Agbelema.
But CSIR could have given us a different species so that we venture into the production of cassava flour. We've gotten to the point where cassava is not being imported.
CSIR is highly underutilized and highly under-resourced. It's because as a country, you fail to take advantage of research and development. And that is why 30 years now, we are still coming to have this conversation that you want to shift on Mahama.
I'm not shifting. I'm just asking because you talk about the ineptitude of the current government.
All 5 of them
and
have failed us.
I'm asking you that you had the opportunity to also expand that cassava initiative that former President Kufuor started.
It was under Mohamed's administration that Jospon took over the cassava starch factory.
But it was your party that was in power.
And it was at that time that Jospon took over that factory.
Anyway, okay, well, I don't know what you say to this because, again, we talk about the ineptitude, and this won't be the first time that your government has been described as inept when it comes to the management of the economy.
When we start talking like, oh, don't compare, that's why they are out of power. But sometimes it's a bit overwhelming when you have Gabriela talking about ineptitude when if we don't know anything at all, we know the fanfare they did with Commander Sugar Factory, we know the fact that even without a pandemic, there was a freeze on public sector jobs. Even without a pandemic, we sat in this country when we were told that when we were told that if the country is too hot for us, we should leave. We sat in this country when we were told the exchange rate was because of high-rise buildings. So sometimes it's a bit overwhelming. Listen to our compatriots talk about things that they have no idea about. You know, have no idea about. I mean, Gabi, there's no doubt about the fact that we are in a difficult situation, and a lot of measures have to. The way we've been doing things looks like it's not good. New ways have to be done. How do you do it? You review and you move on. We had the NDC then give 10% of their salary. Some even went back for their 10%. And
some went back for it.
Some went back for it. And Gabi knows that. Some were against it.
She says it's not true.
I'll send you
have evidence of people who went back for their 10%.
Document. Don't worry. I'll say, you see, it's overwhelming when they want to, they virtually moved us from high to low, and now we are bringing it back, and we have been hit by, we've hit a snag, and we're trying to get back to it, and it's like they are holier than thou, you know. There's media, okay, there's media review coming up. Cabinet meeting probably today. You see the interventions that will come up. We've done it before. And we'll do it again.
Okay.
It's a difficult situation across the globe. We can't do much about it. And you see, one other thing that we also need to be telling each other, let's also be sympathetic towards each other. Because sometimes the way people price in this country is quite sad. You can get something for 2 cedis, that's with all the cost added. Someone is selling it for 10 cedis. That's what in Gonja we call Tinubu. Tuno is a prophet, and Boso is like something that intoxicates. You know, we also need to know that we are the same people. Whatever you are doing, thinking you are putting, making the government unpopular by increasing your prices or selling things at outrageous prices. We also need to look at it. This is the country we have. There's one Ghana.
Can you blame them? You don't know how much they invested in the business, which is why they probably have priced it at that price. So if you say that they have to be empathetic, I mean,
Bella,
they should also think of their business,
Bella,
should they not?
Bella, we know how pricing is in this country. We know how pricing is. Don't let us pretend about it. It's one of the issues that we as citizens should also look at. Let's stop cheating each other.
Okay. On that note, I mean, I would want us to touch on the cathedral briefly before we wrap up. We have very limited time. But
you want to touch on cathedral instead of COVID? That's killing people?
How is it? Let's talk about the cathedral. Because even if COVID is killing people, if we're investing about 200 million Ghana cedis of the taxpayers' money into a cathedral that the president told us was a personal project, and this amount did not go to Parliament for approval, do you think that's right?
When you put it that way, for me, sitting at where I sit and with my faith, I'm not a Christian.
Okay.
I'm a Muslim. The edifice I see at Kanda, I wish could be replicated across the 16 regions.
Which is the mosque that you're talking about, okay.
I don't know where we draw the line between the president as an individual and the president as the father of the nation. And for a country that sees itself as very religious, and where I come from as a Muslim, the leader of the Ummah or the Muslim, you may disagree with him, you may have issues with some of his decisions, but he's your leader. I don't think I've heard any of the high-ranking men of God in this country counter this. So I find it very uncomfortable coming from where I'm coming from with my faith, which is not totally different from we all believe in God. We all believe in the prophets, but things are done differently. So I don't know what? We may have a conversation about the timing, but when is the right timing?
Is it about time or is it about the amount that is being spent as seed money? At a time when Ghanaians were made to understand, because you even remember that at a point, governments called on Ghanaians to also contribute some amount of money, at least 100 Ghana cedis or so, to help build the cathedral.
Yes, I don't recall.
So how is it that on the blind side of Ghanaians, we're seeing letters
we've also,
directed at the finance ministry asking
in difficult times, we've supported
$25
other countries and all that. I mean, there are lots of things government does, but I find it a bit off, not knowing what exactly, how things are done within the Christian sector, especially when I haven't heard any of the leaders, correct me if I'm wrong, but any of the leaders that are brothers and sisters follow going against this initiative.
Let me bring Gabriela in to respond to this quickly before we go. And so we've seen letters that have been put out, and these letters were directed at the Ministry of Finance from the Chief of Staff, asking for some 142.762 million Ghana cedis, the equivalent of $25 million at the time, at a rate of 5.7 Ghana cedis per dollar. That amount, that's even aside the 25 million Ghana cedis that was released earlier as part payments for the cathedral. Now we're seeing this as well. So we're looking at about 200 million Ghana cedis being released for the cathedral. What do you say?
Romans 2:24, as this written, for God says, my name is blasphemed by the Gentiles because of you. President Akufo-Addo went to Israel on his own conviction to seek the face of God to help him win an election. Lorato was asking, where do we draw the line between President Akufo-Addo as a leader and as a father of the nation? This was a personal decision that he made. Granted that he's attempted to get the nation to believe in his covenant and to follow in his covenant. I find it saddening that because of a physical edifice like that, which is just even at the foundation level, every single day the name of God is blessed. I'm a very strong spiritual Christian. And for me and my the name of God is not something that we play around with. My faith is like the Muslims when it comes to Muhammad. President Akufo-Addo convinced the people of Ghana that the church was going to support him to build the cathedral. Now we are finding out that taxpayers' money has been voted to finance the project. I think that the onus lies on President Akufo-Addo to explain to Ghanaians why he chose to use taxpayers' funds for the project. I'm not against the cathedral.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, if you really want to build an edifice for God, it is not that cement structure. He can choose not to enter that structure. Okay. And I personally have an issue with even the location of that cathedral, especially at the ministries where corruption is so rife. Every day you want to go to look at the stinking corruption that is going on around those areas. And you think that anybody sitting there, if the real God was to come and occupy that cathedral, anybody in that enclave will survive.
Anyway, well, unfortunately, our time is up. We have to go. Akosia, I'm sorry that we didn't give you enough time last week. We apologize. Maybe the next time you come, my producers would work on extending the time for us. It's Larato's mother's birthday.
It was my mom's birthday yesterday. I just want to wish her because I wished her late. And I just want her to know that we love her and we appreciate her. She's not big on politics because she's seen her father, she's seen her husband, she's seen her brother. But I just want to wish my mom well. Okay. And she should know that we really love and appreciate her.
Absolutely. And also on business news today, we'll explain why governments must listen to the business community and intervene to tame inflation. And we'll also compare inflation in Ghana to its peers. We'll explain why some oil marketing companies need to merge, and we'll let you join in on the performance of Ghana's bond markets. Details of these and other issues will be on our business segments at midday, 7 p.m. and more extensively at 4:30 p.m. We have an exclusive this morning, and so look forward to our entertainment segment today as someone that you love. And also we'll be talking about that young lady, the 15-year-old who was flogged by two young men somewhere in Ofuase, Iwebi. What does the law say about this, and what do the child rights activists also have to say? This is TV3 New Day. We'll be right back.